today we are making this very adorable dice bag. So it's basically some big circles, and then it cinches at the top, and then you can tie it up. But when you open it, it's got all these fun little pockets. So you can use this for, so this one's a Dungeons and Dragons fabric, so D&D, so it's designed to carry lots of dice, but you could also make it if you wanted to take your jewelry traveling with you, because it's a small pouch that will fit everywhere, and then the inside sections, you can section out all your different types of jewelry. So if you'd like to see how to make this, stay tuned. So this Christmas plate is 27 centimeters in diameter, and so this is going to be my inner circle for the pouch pieces, and then this is 1/4 of a circle, but the radius is 20 centimeters, so the diameter would be 40, so it goes 40 across, and that's going to be our outside. So what I need to cut is one big circle like this. So 2 ways you could do this. You could keep your 1/4 template and fold the fabrics over, or you can cut one and then keep this as the template to do all things. You could also probably laminate this, but this is going to be my outside. The red's not actually my inside fabric either. I'm going to use a tealy color. So I'm just going to lay that down, and I'm getting as close to the corners as possible because this fabric was from Spoonflower, so I had to custom order it in. And now I'm just going to cut around my template circle. With circles, you want to go nice and slow so you're not going to have any kind of sharp edges anywhere. And I always hold this extra bit. I find it easier if I lift it a little bit. Like, I'm not pulling on it, but when I cut, I lift it and it keeps it out of the way. Then I'm going to just shuffle this over so I can get there better. And so now I have my outer piece. Right, so now we want to cut another large circle out of the inside fabric. So I'm using, this is just a quilting cotton. Now I won't be interfacing any of these pieces. I did try it with interfacing, but it makes it too stiff and doesn't gather up as nicely when we put the cinch cord in. So I'm just using, again, the same circle template, and I'm going to cut around. And then I'm going to come this way. And again, when I'm cutting on this side, I hold this piece out of the way. I just find it works better for me. You don't have to, you could just leave it. So now we've got our inner circle. Now we still need to, I'm just going to make all the inner parts out of this fabric. So I'm going to take my Christmas plate and put it right sides down, and then you can either grab a rotary cutter and rotary cut around the plate, which is potentially quicker, except you've got some weird angles you have to kind of maneuver around. So you can do it that way, or you can just grab a pen and trace around and then cut it. But I genuinely think that this is quicker for me, sadly enough, even though I've missed a little bit. So I'm just going to cut that there so that I can move that, because I veered a little bit from the path there. So that's one circle, and then I need a second one to back onto that, because we want to not have any raw edges. So by sewing everything together, it's going to be our best bet. So again, I'm just going to use the rotary cutter. I'm going slowly. I'm putting pressure on my plate so that it doesn't slip and move. And it's always this bit that's going to be the problem. So if you can turn your fabric, I just totally messed that up, but you can just line it up again. So lay it flat there so that I can get to the other side. And then I'm just going to come and line it up around the edge like that so I can cut the last side. Now, something that would potentially help you if you wanted to make a lot of these would be a rotating cutting board. I do have one. I've just lent it to my brother, so I will get that back eventually. Right. So now we should have 4 circles. 2 large and 2 small. If you wanted to, you could have also done some of the outside fabric on one of the inside circles and had a matching set, and then that would be the pattern inside the bag as well if you wanted to. So let's go to the sewing machine to sew all this together. All right, so I'm over at my sewing machine. So I'm just using a normal polyester 60 weight thread, which is like normal sewing thread. You're also going to need a chalk pen or friction pen, some snips, and a ruler. You can use pins if you want to, although I'm probably not going to. So we're going to take first our 2 smaller circles and put them right sides together. Pull all the fluff off. I have given them a quick iron so that they are going to sit lovely and flat for me. And then I'm just going to start anywhere because it's a circle. Can't start in a corner. And we're just going to stitch and then back stitch. And then I'm just going to do basically a 1/4 inch all the way around. And I always want to stop with the needle down, and then I'm just going to bring the circle around some more. So I have a 1/4 inch marked on the plastic part of the plate here. So I'm just lining up my circle with that. Bring it around again. Now the reason I'm stopping so much is because I haven't used any pins, so I don't want to pull on one layer more than the other. And then I'm going to leave about a 2-inch gap. So I'm going to get to where I want to stop, and then I'm going to back stitch. Lift up the needle, pull it out and snip it. Now because we've just done a 1/4 inch, you can trim the edge with some zigzag scissors if you want, or picking shears, but I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it's going to need it. So now I'm going to push all of that through, and then I'm just going to use my fingernail to scratch that seam. And scratching the seam will make sure that it's going to sit out perfectly flat. And then after I've scratched the seam and turned it all the way through, I am then going to iron it because we want this to be really nice and neat. So ironing is going to help us get that seam to sit, but scratching the seam first helps that to sit relatively well before we iron it. So we also, but while we're doing the ironing, we're also going to tuck in these raw edges here so that it is a perfect flat circle. So I'm going to do that and I will be right back. All right, so let's top stitch it. I just gave it a bit of a whack. I think I fixed my problem. So I'm just top stitching 1/8 of an inch around. Only go as fast as you feel comfortable. There's no race, but always stop with your needle down to readjust. And then when we go back to the start, we're just going to stitch over a couple of stitches and then stitch back. And that's going to lock in the first set and the last set. Okay, so now we've got this circle. We're going to take our other inner circle. Like this, and we're going to line them up on top of each other and in the middle. I'm just getting rid of all the fluff. I have a lot of fluff apparently. So a good way to be able to center that is we're going to fold it in half and add a crease, just a gentle one. And then I'm going to fold that in half and crease it that way as well. So now I've got very faint crisscross center marks. So I'm going to do the same with the sewn circle. So we're going to crease it there, and then I'm going to crease it the other way, and then you just line the creases up. Seems easy enough. So like that. So that is now in the center. This is where we need our ruler. So with those crease lines, I am now just going to draw with a temporary pen. So this is a friction pen. You could also use a chalk pencil. So I'm going to draw that way and then the opposite way through the center. And we're only drawing on the little circle, by the way. And then I'm going to draw in the middle here, that way, and then twist it and this way. So I'm doing 8 sections. Like so. Now I'm going to use some pins for this part because I don't want it to shift. We don't need a lot of pins, and I'm going to pin them not over any of my lines. So these pins are just going to hold it so it doesn't shift while I'm trying to stitch straight lines, but I don't have to sew over any pins. I'm just going to make sure that they're all out of the way. So now I can lift it up and show you. So I've got a pie, and then I've put the pin in like the center of 4 opposite ones. Right, so now I just need to sew from here. And I'm just going to sew on the line. So I'm going to start at the edge of the small circle. We're going to stitch 3 and back stitch, and off we go. Back stitch, and then I'm going to snip there, and I'm going to snip here. I'm also going to take off the tails while I remember. And so you can do the opposite one, or you can just do the next one. Because we've pinned it, I will just do the next line along. If you have decided not to use pins, do opposite ones so that it's going to hold everything evenly. And back stitch, lift up, all the way up, and then the next one. There's only 4 lines to do because we're going all the way across, but our 4 lines are creating 8 pockets. Now you can do 6 pockets, you could do 4, whatever you need. If you want your pockets just a little bit bigger, I'd be doing 6. You can get really fancy and do 5, but you'll have to do the maths to get the right shape. So now you can take out your pins because everything's sewn. And now you should have a pizza wheel. So the next step is to take our outside. Now, if you're going to do buttonholes, now is the time to measure where your buttonholes are going to go, and then you can just create the channel to fill with your cord. I'm going to do the eyelets though, so mainly because everybody else on the internet seems to just do a cord, and I like my eyelet machine, and I bought like 200 6mm ones, and they need to be used. Is pretty much my reasoning behind that. So I'm just lining this up on my circle, and then I'm going to put pins in it, but not where I'm going to sew. Because there's enough room, I just need to kind of hold it together a little bit, so I can just put the pins in from the edge, like that. Yeah. And that will hold it enough so I can speed around the edge. Now you obviously don't have to speed, you can go at whatever comfortable pace you like. I am sewing at 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I'm going to stitch and back stitch. And I've got a little marking on my plate, so I'm just guiding my fabric along that. How I want to hold it, by the way. I'm trying to find what's more comfortable. Pull that out, trim that off. Oh, I was supposed to leave a gap. That's exactly what I was meant to do. That's why we backstitched at the start. I started off so good and then I got sidetracked. So I'm just going to go and snip out probably 15 stitches. So I'm going to snip every 3 along here. Probably 20 stitches. And then from the back, if I pull that bit, it creates my gap. So there's my gap. Now I'm just going to go to, not obviously an edge, but just another piece and pull it through. Through like this. And then again, I want to scratch that seam with my fingernail, so I'm just going to push on it like this. And we're going to go around, we're going to push on it. Like that. And now again, I'm going to go and iron this flat, and I want to tuck in those raw edges so that the curve continues. So I'll be right back after I've done that. So we are now all ironed, so I'm going to do the same thing and top stitch the big one. So I want to do about 1/8 inch. Through the first 2 stitches and then back stitch it together, and then trim off all the tails. So now you should have something that looks like a giant pizza, like that. Everything's top stitched and lovely. I have an extra loop in my bobbin. Right, there we go, that's better. Put my little case back on. So now I'm going to flip it over this way, and I'm going to use this edge of my foot up against the inner round part, and this is going to be the start of our channel. Now, if you don't want as much fluff on the top, so much of this part up here, you just move the cord up more. It will also create a bigger bag, but it will also mean that there's more chance that stuff will fall out of your pockets. So that is up to you how you want to play that. Get rid of the fluff so I'm not stitching it into the design. Fluff. I'm also going to trim off the back tail so that it doesn't get tangled up. And then when I get back to the start, we're going to go through the first stitches and back stitch. Like so. Trim off all the tails that you can see. And now we need to make a second piece for a channel. In my case, I'm making a second channel so that all of my rivets will sit between there, so the rivets won't have too much tension on them. Now, I'm just looking at my foot and thinking that this side is the perfect size. So even though I normally tell you not to do this, I actually think this is going to be the best way to get a full circle. So I'm using this side of the foot as my guide against my last stitches to get a nice size channel. Now I'll be doing this side slower because all of my bulk is within my machine. And this is normally something I tell you not to do, but circles are difficult, so this is actually the easiest way. Stop, and then I'm going to pull this again. I'm nearly back to the start. So then when we get back to the start, we're going to run over the first few stitches and then back stitch. So now I've got a nice channel. Because I've used a matching thread, you can barely see it from the outside, but you can see it on the inside. And that's given me like a really nice consistent circle there too. I don't know if you can see it, but it's quite consistent all the way around, which is lovely because circles can get tricky. Right, so now we are going to move positions and put in all of our eyelets. So I have my two presses because when you buy the dies, so this is the die because it's the squishy one, you also over here will get the hole punch one, perfect for the grommets or eyelets. So I have both, so I'm just putting them in both to kind of save time, even though that obviously took way longer than necessary. Now, how I'm going to space out my rivets is quite simple. Basically, where I've stitched, I'm going to put a rivet in the thing, and then I'm going to also do one in the center of each pie slice. So there should be 16 rivet holes. You want to have an even number, otherwise it's not going to work out the way you want. So I'm going to go around and do all the ones in line with the lines first, because they're the easiest ones to maths out. You also notice, because it's just 2 layers of cotton, I'm not really getting a sound when I squish it. It's a little bit disappointing. I like the big pop noise that vinyl makes. I'm just lining it up in between my 2 rows of stitching. It's worked out quite well, actually. So now that I've lined that up with all of the pizza lines, I'm going to go and do one in the middle. Now, if you don't want to eyeball it like I am, you could definitely measure it. I am definitely eyeballing it. You need lots of eyelets, otherwise it won't cinch up properly. I did try it with 8. It didn't work. Spinning it round and round. There, and one more. Obviously, I could have just done one and then the middle and then the next one. But that still worked out well. So now I've just got all the holes. You'll want to grab, and this time I'm going to just use some fabric glue. And you just kind of want to dab it on the holes. Because this is all fabric, there is no vinyl, you don't want anything to fray. So to help prevent that, I usually use fray stopper, but I think my bottle is empty. I don't think there's any left. We can try it. I was getting fray stopper from Spotlight, but they've stopped selling this one. And it's very much like water, but I think it is gone. Yeah, no. So back to the fabric glue. You just want to make sure your nozzle's clear. Let it run upside down. Now fabric glue is thicker than fray stopper, so I do have to squeeze it just a little bit. And then I'm just putting, like I'm getting like one small bead, and then swirling it around the edge. And this is going to help stop the edges having a meltdown. If you get any kind of spider tails like that, make sure you get rid of them. But again, one little drop of bead all the way around. This may seem time consuming, and it possibly is, but I like the look of the eyelets. So for me personally, I think it's worth it. You could potentially skip this part if you don't want to use the glue around the edge. You don't need a lot. I just would hate if something was to happen to it. So I'm going to do it. One dab of glue. So I actually am finding this harder than fray stopper. Fray stopper may be excessively runny, but it's also easier to apply. So that's just some food for thought for you. All right, now I'm back to the start. So I'm just going to come along, and any spider webby bits I can see, I'm just going to wipe them off while they're still wet. They come off quite well. So it doesn't really look all that much different. All right, and so then I'm going to sit my eyelet on here. I'm going to put it so that the eyelet cap is on the outside. I'm going to push it there like that, and then just gently squish it down. We're going to do this to all of them. So I don't like to smash these. I like to be gentle because the eyelets don't have one of those backs to put on. So it is very important that it catches the edge of the fabric. So I like to do that slowly, whereas grommets you can be a little bit more rough, in my opinion. And that glue is going to stop those edges from fraying. So this is a 6mm eyelet. You can also get 10, 12. I use 15 for the bigger ones that I use on my other patterns. The glue is definitely helping to make sure that the eyelets cover the edge of the fabric. So glue is a very good idea, in my opinion. Doesn't matter that it's still wet. And then after we've put the eyelets, all we have to do is add in the cinch cord. Now, if you've got a favorite design on the outside that you want at the at the front where the cinch cord is, that's where you'd start. But this is a very much one of those all over patterns. So it won't matter. If you've got a directional fabric, make sure you start where the fabric's going to be sitting up correctly. 2 to go. I find it easy to put the eyelet on the machine and then just slide the fabric over. But if that's troubling you, you can actually put this on like this and then slide it over with the fabric on it already. Your choice. Dealer's choice. So that's now done. Now we just need to grab one of our cords. I bought this pack for $2 at like a local shop. So I'm going to use the blue one. So these are 1 meter pieces. So you don't really need a full meter. It does leave quite a long tail. But it depends on if you want to be able to flatten it out again or not. So they come with this little kind of tie-up thing. So as you can see, this isn't directional. So I'm just going to start anywhere. I'm going to go in here. And then I'm going to go out. And I'm just going to weave in between them all. And I want to pull it all the way through, otherwise I'm probably going to run out of cord. So the 6mm eyelet holes are big enough for this cord. This is just like a thin leather strap or leather look strap. I'm not sure if it's real leather or not. I haven't actually checked. Doesn't really matter for this purpose. You could also just use like round cording or anything you've got lying around, really. So this was 1 meter, and as you can see, when it lays flat, we pretty much use the whole meter. There's not much of a tail left there. That was 1 meter around. But then when you grab it, the first time you cinch it, you kind of want to have your hand in the middle so that they go in the right direction. Like that. And then I like to just wrap that cord around. And voila, one adorable dice bag. And then when you open it, now that you've cinched it the first time, it will stay that way. So when you open it, see how the pockets are sitting up? So you can get into all of your pockets. And then you can just cinch it up again. So I hope that was fun for you. I hope you make one. Let me know if you do. Let me know if you have any dramas. And I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.